are you? Long time no speak. First of all, I'm not drinking tea, I'm drinking coffee. And I know you're thinking, blasphemy! An English person not drinking tea. The reason I'm not drinking tea is because I don't have my kettle. My kettle is no longer in the kitchen. And the reason that is because this is no longer my kitchen. I don't live here anymore. So this is the last vlog coming to you from this kitchen. And it's also probably why there's maybe a bit of an echo in here. Because we've moved flats, we've left the flat, people, me and my wife. But I'll get to that in a little bit. First of all, I became a dad. I've got a baby girl. I had a French baby girl. She's French. I mean, she's English, but she's definitely French because she's born in France. The wife, her mother, is French. And she complains a lot like a French person. Every day, constantly complaining, more so than me. But she's now 4 weeks old today, when I'm recording this on Friday, whatever the date is, the 26th of July. She's 4 weeks old, and it's been 4 weeks of of an intense ride. Not only because we've got a new baby girl, but because we had to move house as well. I don't even know where to begin, really, apart from drinking more coffee. Well, I guess it's to start at the beginning, right? I've had a baby in France, and having babies in countries, the process is probably different for different countries. I don't know what it's like to have a baby in another country. So once you've heard the story, maybe you can let me know below, because now I'm interested in baby stuff, in people having babies and stuff like that. In France, I'll just tell you my experience. It might not be the experience everyone has in France, but let me tell you the experience. First of all, let's just start with when it all started to kick off, right? When the water broke, my wife's water broke. We didn't even know, it wasn't like the films, right? You imagine it to be in the films where you're just like walking along and suddenly there's a river. Wasn't like that at all. My wife was actually putting the washing on the rack, and I was helping her, and I noticed there was a bit of liquid on the sofa, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Is that a problem? Do we call, what's the situation? The thing hasn't happened. It hasn't gone whoosh, like it does in the films, and everyone's like, oh, get to the hospital now. So we called up the hospital, and they said, come in for some tests. If it's amniotic fluid, we'll keep you in. If it's not amniotic fluid, you can go home. But chill out, don't worry. Don't rush in, take a shower, pack your bag, do all that kind of stuff. And because my wife wasn't having contractions, we took it easy. So she had a shower, I finished packing the bags, and that was it basically. About an hour later, we headed to the hospital in an Uber. No ambulance coming, no crate, just an Uber. I ordered an Uber, and he got a 5-star rating, I'll tell you that. But because my wife wasn't having contractions, it wasn't like, you know, we were in the Uber and she was going, because that's, in my mind, what was going to happen is that she was going to have contractions. We weren't going to find a taxi that was going to take us to the hospital because they were going to refuse. We'd have to call it like the SAMU in France, the ambulance, who take ages. It was going to be a nightmare, but it actually ended up fine. We took an Uber just as if we were taking an Uber back from a restaurant. We get to the hospital and it turns out it's amniotic fluid, and so they're like, cool, you got to stay in the hospital and we'll give it 24 hours. If nothing's happened within 24 hours, we will induce the birth. We'll give you some hormones. What ended up happening is that my wife had to be induced into labour early because basically the baby had taken a shit inside of the uterus, and the amniotic fluid ends up being like this greenish colour, and that's definitely bad news, right? Because they don't want the baby to be breathing in shit. I mean, she's Parisian. She's going to be used to breathing in shit the rest of her life probably, so it's a good initiation into being a Parisian. And here's the thing, I didn't know labour, I mean, they tell you in like preparation courses the whole labour situation, what's going to happen during labour. I didn't realise that labour could be so easy. Basically, she had an epidural, which is an injection in your back that makes the whole of your bottom half not painful. She slept through 10 hours of labour, basically. I was just watching her sleep, essentially. I was watching her sleep and I was watching, like, monitoring the baby's heart rate. However, she didn't sleep through all of it. every hour, the midwife would come in and check that everything was going on. And essentially, they're checking to see how dilated the uterus is. Maybe it's the uterus. I think it's the uterus that dilates. It's something that dilates to allow the baby's head to come out. And they come in and basically check how wide the hole is for the baby to come out. And it's only when it's 10 centimeters that they go, cool, you're gonna push the baby out. But that can take ages, and it took 10 hours. Basically every hour, the midwife would come in and essentially manually put her fingers in my wife and check how wide the uterus was, check how wide it is. All of this while she's eye contacting. She's giving me eye contact, right? While she's in checking. It's a very weird situation. Plus the midwife is very cute. She's like 25. My wife is like, how is this possible? How have I got a midwife that's better looking than me? It's crazy. So my experience of labor was me sat on this really uncomfortable chair watching a really hot woman every hour come in and basically put her hand in my wife while giving me eye contact, and it was all reimbursed by the social security system. So thanks, France. And at some point she's like, oh, I can feel your baby's hair. She's touching my baby's hair inside my wife while giving me eye contact and telling me all of this. No one told me that's what labour was going to be. No one told me any of this. And then at the end, it all went really well. It all went really well. My wife basically had to push 6 times, and the baby was helped out with some spatulas because she wasn't coming out. She was lazy, like me. She was just like, nah, I'm good in here. Oh, and if you see me sweating, it's because it's the heat wave right now in Paris. It's so hot. It was also the heat wave when my wife gave birth, which was horrific because the 3 days after the birth were just unbelievable. We were in a maternity ward with no air conditioning. My wife was sharing a room with another couple. It was just a very uncomfortable, not very good situation, to be honest. I couldn't stay overnight because, you know, I couldn't because there was another woman in the room. So the post-birth was a lot harder than the pre-birth, basically. It was just, it's been intense. Ever since she came out, it's been intense. I keep saying she. Her name is Louise. People have asked me what her name is. I don't mind sharing her name. Her name is Louise Taylor. There you go. So since Louise came, it's just been a constant stream of we don't know what's going on. We don't know. We don't know what we're doing. We don't know what we're doing. We're so tired. So she arrived in this flat, and obviously we couldn't stay here. We've been planning the move for a while now, so we knew we were moving out of here, and we couldn't, for a bunch of different reasons, we couldn't move until after the birth. So that was the main thing for the past couple of weeks. It's been happening. We've been packing everything up from this flat. We hired some people to move the majority of the things, but there was still, for logistical reasons, when you've got a child, just logistics become very complicated. You can't just be like, fuck it, we'll move into a new place and sleep on the floor and just, you know, build IKEA furniture. We can't, with the kids, you can't do that. So once all of our stuff, or 90% of our stuff, was moved, then I had to hire a car and drive to the new place because it's just outside of Paris. Drive there every day and build IKEA furniture to make the house a bit presentable before we left. My wife and Louise were staying here with the 2 cats while I was every day going there building stuff. And then a second heat wave came, and it was the most uncomfortable couple of days that I've ever. It's been the hardest couple of days, the hardest couple of weeks. It feels like it's been months that I've ever had to go through. Just 40 degrees heat, sweat dripping off. It just moving, going back and forth into the car, picking up boxes, picking up bags, putting them into the car, coming back, going to the other place, the new place, building the IKEA furniture, no air conditioning, just completely knackering. At some stage, it was so hot that I just got in the car, the rental car with the aircon, and just drove around for a bit. Just drive around. That's what we ended up with, and yesterday was our last day in this apartment. We moved the final couple of bags and important things to the new flat. and this is why the flat's empty. And it's weird when I was reflecting on this specific kitchen, this specific flat. It was sad. I've never been sad leaving a place before. This flat here is the 23rd place that I've lived in my life. I've now moved to the 24th place. But here was a specifically, and it was more emotional one for a couple of reasons. One, I've been in this flat for 6 years. We've been together for 6 years in this flat, and it's the longest place that I've ever lived. I've only ever lived for 3 years maximum in a place before. Here it was 6 years, so it's the longest place I've ever lived. And specifically this kitchen has seen a lot of things have happened in our lives. Fuck off. Professionally, it was my home office. When I worked for Apple and I worked from home, if I wasn't traveling, this is where I would sit with my laptop open to do home office work. So it was my home office for Apple. It's where I also started to write jokes. It's also where I thought, oh cool, I'm going to start doing comedy and let me try and write some jokes in here. And my very first video series for this YouTube channel was called Taylor's Top Tips. They weren't very good. They were just Instagram 15-second videos, a lot of which were filmed here. Then when I realised things were going well with comedy and my jokes were working, the jokes that I was writing here, I sat down here to write my resignation letter to Apple to say, hey, I'm leaving. Once I quit Apple, it's where I wrote almost all of the jokes for my show, #Franglais, that I did for 3 years. Almost all of my 3 TV shows were written here. What the Fuck France, What's Up France, and Stereo Trip, I worked on them just here. This is where all of this was happening. The vlogs, most of the vlogs are filmed here. And on a personal note, I was sat here, my wife was sat on this side here when I asked her to marry me. And it's also the kitchen where I prepared my daughter's first meal when she came back from the hospital. Her first bottle that I prepared was in this kitchen. So, speaking of which, Jesus, feeding babies, oh my God. Here's my life before the baby. And now here's my life with a baby. Get out of the fucking way, cat. That's good, nighty. Oh no. Shut up. So this is the kitchen where it's all happened, and it feels like the amazing closing of a chapter, because I've been in France for 10 years. Me and my wife have been together for 10 years. We've been in this flat for 6 years, and it's a whole new beginning. We've got a new life now in a new apartment. We've got a new baby girl, and I've also got a new stand-up show as well. So it all feels like the perfect closure to what's been an amazing 10 years since I graduated university. I finished university in 2009. It's exactly almost 10 years to the date since I left the UK in August 2009 to move to France. And I've been here for 10 years now. So yeah, I think that's it. I think that's it for this vlog. It's a really long vlog. This is 25 minutes of filming. I'm gonna end on a pain au chocolat moment and say thanks for watching this episode of the vlog. And I'll see you very soon for another episode. All right. Bisous, bye. Now that we don't live here anymore, I'll give you a tour of the flat because it's, you know, I don't care anymore. This is a kitchen. It's like MTV Cribs. This is a kitchen. That's the front entrance with the toilet. Fun fact about the toilet is that we had all our friends right on the wall every time they came. We had a blackboard wall. It's pretty cool. So while they're taking a shit, they can write. So yeah, basically the flat consisted of the kitchen, the living room with the TV that was here, right? And then basically through here was the bedroom, small enough bedroom, and bathroom. That's it. 43 square meters in Paris. And the reason I always filmed in the kitchen was because this side was a complete mess. I only ever filmed really this side because it was the clean part of the, of the apartment. So yeah, we've moved to a slightly bigger place in the suburbs of Paris. Temporarily until we find a bigger place in Paris, because we want to be in Paris, because Paris is where it's at. Alright, see you later.